The Ram TRX. Yeah, it is an absolute fantastic truck. Probably the best one I've ever driven. Actually, it is the best one I've ever driven. But today marks 3 years since I've bought this truck. And there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things I've learned. There's a lot of things I've experienced. Let's talk about them today. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the vlog. Thanks for pressing play. Today is all about the Ram TRX, the big, beefy Raptor killer truck from Ram and the guys over at Dodge. Or I guess I should say Stellantis, or else I'll get murdered by the people in the comments saying, "It's not a Dodge, it's a Ram." Anyway, you guys get the point. I've owned the truck for 3 years, and there's a lot that has happened in those 3 years. I want to go over all of them today with you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've talked about this before in my 2-year review, but some things have changed. Some things have gotten done on the truck. The truck has been in for service a couple times. Let's go over what I've learned in the 3 years with this beastly TRX. Before we get too much into it though, guys, I do want to talk about the fact that I absolutely love this truck. My 3-year review of this truck is going to say very similar things that my 2-year review did. And that is, of course, it doesn't get much better than this. You got two options. If you want a truck that's like this, you got two options. You got the Raptor R and the TRX. There are rumors that the TRX is going to come back in 26 or 27. That's to be seen. But as of right now, the 2024 Ram TRX is the last of its kind. So if you want a truck that's like this, you either get 2021 through 2024 Ram TRX, or you get a Ford Raptor R if you need to have that V8 to go along with the looks of this. I personally spent a good bit of time inside of a Ford Raptor, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think they compare. Now, this is obviously my personal opinion. Of course, this entire review is my personal opinion. I personally like the TRX better, even if price isn't factored in. So if you take a Ram TRX at this level and set it right beside a Raptor R, the interior quality, the exterior quality, in my opinion, it's not a comparison. We'll talk all about that in a minute. First, let's talk a little bit about the truck. This is a 2022 Ram TRX Level 2, finished in the diamond black crystal exterior color. This truck has every single option you could possibly get minus one. I didn't get the bed-mounted spare carrier, that's it. Other than that, every option was checked because I plan on keeping this truck for a long time. Mostly because odds are good they're not making anything like this anymore. Everything seems to be moving towards twin turbocharged 6 cylinders or 4 cylinders, and they're moving away from the big V8 supercharged engines. That's the thing I wanted the most in this truck. So if you're in the market for a Ram TRX, there's a few things you need to know before you buy one of these. This is effectively going to serve as my 3-year review and things I've learned that I can pass on to you for your consideration before purchasing something like this. So let's just get right into it, guys. Like I said in the beginning there, I love this truck. It is one of the best I've ever driven, probably the best, to be honest with you. It rides extremely well. It is easy to take this truck on long road trips and not get any kind of fatigue from doing so. I have upgraded the wheels and tires on this truck to get a little bit more poke on the outside and have a meteor looking tire because I like that off-road, I'm gonna kill you kind of look. But seriously though, guys, the truck is really, really comfortable. The interior quality makes you feel right at home while you're driving the truck from point A to point B, or even if you are off-roading it. The little bit of off-roading I've done so far with the truck tells me that this thing performs off-road just as well, if not better, than it does on-road. The Bilstein shocks are really built to soak up the bumps and take any kind of off-roading you might want to throw at it as well. This is definitely a purpose-built truck. It can do what off-road trucks do best, which is off-road. With that said, there's a bunch of different modes you can put the truck in. You can have it in your typical street driving, which is going to be the most soft on the street. Throttle's going to be kind of dead. Then it's going to take you up to the sport mode, which is going to dial everything up to 11. It's going to be something you're going to use for drag strip kind of stuff because, yeah, you know, why wouldn't you have the option to take an off-road built truck to the drag strip, right? Then you got your Baja modes and your snow modes and things like that that will assist you further in your off-roading capabilities. I like to say that this truck pretty much does it all. If I had to choose between all of the vehicles I own and narrow it down to just one simple vehicle, it would probably be this, because it does everything. Whether I need a truck, it can be a truck. Do I need to tow something? It tows 8,100 pounds. Do I need something that's kind of fast around town? Yeah, I've gotten a 3.8 second 0 to 60 time out of this truck. It weighs 6,500 pounds. That's unheard of. This thing literally does it all. And it looks fantastic while it's doing it. I have a couple mods on the truck, nothing crazy. I did change out the wheels and tires. Like I said, I put on an AWE exhaust. I have an AFE cold air intake, a solar performance throttle controller, which has helped massively get rid of some of that throttle lag, especially whenever I have it set up in my custom mode, which is sport suspension, but not sport transmission, because I don't like the way that the RPMs hang and really take forever to shift. Instead, I put the transmission into street mode, and then I added my own solar performance throttle controller to allow that throttle to be a little bit more sensitive without having those RPM hang and really kill the gas mileage. I was averaging somewhere around 9.8 miles per gallon on this truck, which is of course another one of the cons, we'll say. This isn't a truck you buy for gas mileage. I think you guys already know that, but just in case you don't, I'm going to mention it again. Don't buy this if you're looking for Prius style gas mileage. You're not going to get it here. Since I've set up the custom mode with the solar performance throttle controller to really kind of dial in exactly what I want, I now average more like 10 to 12 depending on how I'm driving. Like I said, I like the fact that the truck's fast, so I don't necessarily drive like a grandpa. So, with all of those things said, I really like the truck. The truck drives really well. It does well off-road. It does everything that you need it to do and then some. It looks fantastic, possibly one of the best looking trucks out there as well. Of course, this is, again, my opinion. I've heard very similar things from other people that I've come in contact with. So my personal review ends there. The truck is fantastic. It's awesome to drive. I have had no serious problems with it outside of a few cosmetic and one kind of drivetrain related issue, which I guess we'll talk about now. Just recently I had it at the dealership getting the hood vents replaced. So all three hood vents that are plastic on the hood developed this odd staining on them. It turned white and looked really strange, and it kind of blew me away because I don't do anything with the truck or any of my cars really that would put it in harm's way for something like this to happen. But I took it to my dealership, Laurel Valley Motors in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and they looked at it for a second and said, yep, we'll get those replaced for you. And they have now been replaced. So all three of them are brand new. They replaced them without damaging anything, which is by itself a impossibility, it seems, nowadays with dealerships. But everything went really well. I've had nothing but good luck out of this dealership. So if you guys are in the area, or if you're looking for a Dodge, Ram, Chrysler, Jeep, check out Laurel Valley Motors. They really knock it out of the park every time I deal with them. Anyway, right before that, I also had the drive shaft replaced. You guys have probably seen that video. If not, I'll link it up to the top right of this one, where I was experiencing the drive shaft clunk. That is kind of a common issue with the Ram TRX. It was replaced under factory warranty, and so far, knock on wood, it hasn't come back. So I think for me, this is probably a permanent fix. I currently have 15,000 miles on the vehicle, so roughly 5,000 miles a year. I have 4 vehicles, so I don't necessarily drive any one of them more than the other. So 15,000 miles in 3 years is actually a good bit for one of my vehicles because of how often I can drive a different one. There was also, whenever I first bought the truck, the grab handle on the driver's side to get out was, believe it or not, stitched with orange instead of red. It took me a minute to actually notice the difference because they were so similar in color, but I was like looking at it every time I drove the truck. I was like, man, that does not look right. And then one day I compared it to the one right behind it in the back seat, and sure enough, it was definitely orange. So dealership again took care of it like that. I had no problems with it, and actually they did it while I wasn't even in the state. I flew to Florida. They came up, did it for me, and left. I didn't even have to take the truck in for it. And then lastly, the plastic bezels around the rear taillights are super soft plastic, and they scratch really easily. I can literally push my fingernail into it and get it to scratch. I didn't know that at the time when I was removing the taillights to get the truck PPF'd, and sure enough, there were some gouges left in it that the dealership again took care of for me. This is more so of something just to watch out for. So really, that's it. Those are the only problems I've ever had with the truck. It came with 4 free oil changes, and I just got through all of them because I've done a couple myself. And that, along with the tire rotations, is really the only reason I've been at the dealership. And there's a couple other little things. Really no big deals for a truck this massive with this much power. You would have assumed more issues, but I haven't had any. So anyway, guys, that's my review. There's a lot more to talk about here, but I wanted to get through the review part of this first, of me telling you this truck's freaking awesome. It's the best I've ever driven. I will do my best to keep this for as long as I possibly can. The only way I'm ever going to swap this out is if Ford comes out with something that really blows me away, or Ram comes out with the next generation TRX that maybe has a little bit more horsepower. Other than that, I'm going to hang on to this thing for as long as I possibly can. That's my review. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some things that I've learned in my 3 years and kind of share my knowledge with you. If you guys are thinking about getting a truck like this, what you can expect out of a 700 horsepower 6,500 pound vehicle. Let's start at the top. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, don't expect to get great gas mileage out of this. It's not going to happen. I spend a lot of time at gas stations, and because of that, the very first point on what to expect with this truck probably won't surprise you, and that is you're going to get a lot of people talking to you about this truck. So a lot of my time at the gas station, of course, pumping gas, I'm spent talking to other people about what this is, how I like it, how it performs, and all of these other things. So it's kind of an interesting truck in that aspect because, you know, obviously I have my C8 Corvette Z06 and my C7 Corvette ZR1. When I go to the gas station with those, it's more expected that someone's going to talk to you about those because those are really cool looking cars. This is a truck. So I don't ever expect to get people staring and breaking their necks, so to speak, at a truck, but it does happen. This truck gains a lot of attention. One of the biggest things, and I don't know why, but if I go to Walmart to pick up an order of groceries, usually I place the order online and then we drive over and pick them up in the truck, or I've done it in the past in even my cars. Every single time I pick up the groceries in the truck, the person that's putting the groceries in the truck comments on how cool of a truck it is. I've picked up groceries a handful of times in both of my Corvettes, and they never say a word about the car in any way, shape, or form, be it cool, awesome, stupid, anything. But they always comment on the truck. Just a weird point to put out there. Another thing is, don't plan on garage keeping this. It's very unlikely it's going to fit in your garage, and if it does, you're one of the lucky few. I have not lifted this truck. Even the size of the tires is the same as it would be if I had the stock wheels and tires. This is just how the truck sits from factory. And it is, I don't know if you could tell with my garage doors back there, it's far too large. It is not going to fit in my garage doors. Now, of course, your mileage may vary with this. If you have a large detached garage with a really big door, you'll probably fit it in there. But for the most part, most homes with attached garages, this is not going to fit. So again, don't plan on parking it in your garage. For me, I park it underneath my deck, which even then is kind of a tight fit. Which brings us to point number 2. This thing is not built for tight spaces. Don't expect it to fit in your garage first off, but don't expect it to fit in most parking garages either. Even those can get tight, especially if you have the ram bar on it like I do. That adds another couple inches to the height, and it's very unlikely you're going to fit this in most parking garages unless they're built for bigger vehicles. Same thing with parking spaces. If you're going somewhere real tight that has parking spaces for compact vehicles, this ain't going to fit. Trust me, been there, done that. Almost everywhere I take it, I park at the very end of the parking lot because it's not going to work. You're not going to squeeze in between two Miatas, trust me. Third thing I've learned in the 3 years I've had the truck is that the car insurance on it is kind of high. My car insurance in general is pretty good because of how many vehicles I have and how long we've had the policy, but at the same time, this is the most expensive vehicle on my policy. I have a C7 Corvette ZR1 with 755 horsepower, a C8 Corvette Z06 with 670 horsepower, even a Cadillac Lyriq my wife drives with over 500 horsepower, and this truck exceeds all of them by a fair amount. And I can only assume that is to do with the fact that the vehicle is on the highly stolen list. So this vehicle is something that's apparently relatively easy to steal, which if you guys haven't checked it out, I made a video talking about methods that I use in all my cars on a daily basis to make sure that, you know, theft isn't really an issue. So check that out if you haven't. I'll link that up to the top right of this video as well. Another thing is, this truck is fast, really fast for a truck. Keep that in mind, because if you're like me and you have fast cars, this truck isn't going to compare to your fast cars. It's very fast for a truck. With that said, the top speed on this is 118 miles an hour. So don't think you're going to go dragging somebody down the highway and, you know, show some Ford Mustang who's boss. Unless you're racing 0 to 60, it's not going to be something you're going to show off and win any kind of competitions with. 118 miles an hour, and that is limited due to the tires. So the tires on the truck from factory are rated at 118 miles an hour. With that said, the Nitto Ridge Grapplers I have on here are rated at 99 miles an hour. So really, you shouldn't even be cracking 100 miles an hour with this truck. Which, to be honest, I don't really ever do, because again, the truck is fast from 0 to about 80 miles an hour. That's pretty much where I live anyway. We talked a little bit about the interior and the drive quality or comfort of the truck. The interior is where this truck shines, especially when comparing it to a Ford Raptor. I feel like the interior of this truck is far above the quality you would get with a Raptor. There's a couple reasons for this, but the biggest one is I love the materials used on the inside of this truck. There's a combination of leather, Alcantara, aluminum, and in my case, being a level 2, carbon fiber. So it really feels like a super truck. The feel of the truck, the feel of closing the door, sitting on the seat, touching the electronics on the dash. Everything feels more quality than it does in a Raptor, and it all lends to the end product, which is a really, really high quality, nice looking interior. If you are considering buying one of these trucks, one of the very first things you're going to notice is the stock tires kick up a lot of stuff at the truck. So even if you don't change your tires out the way I did, the stock ones will still produce a lot of road debris getting flung up, especially at the rear fenders of the truck. Now, I tell you this because if you buy this truck, especially if you buy it new or very low mileage, it is a really good idea to throw some PPF or paint protection film on it, or a really nice big set of mud flaps, because the front tires will destroy those rear quarter panels in short order. And if you don't handle it quickly, it may be too late to do something about it after the fact. Now, my tires actually stick out a little bit more than stock. They still fling a lot at the rear. I do have PPF all over the truck, but the Mopar side steps actually help a little bit with knocking that stuff down. I still, personally, I probably should have mud flaps on there because that would prevent that amount of kick up even more. But at the end of the day, just make sure you have some sort of protection on there. You're gonna need it. We touched on this briefly about the insurance being pretty high on this truck because it is easily stolen, and the things you can do to help prevent that, as far as a video I created, which I'll link, like I said, in the top right of this video. But at the end of the day, you should have some sort of theft prevention on this truck because, like it or not, it is something that can be relatively easily stolen. That's where I have a taser device which plugs up underneath the dashboard that actually allows you to customize some of the settings on your truck, like make the daytime running lights always orange and stuff like that. But it also will disable the gas pedal if you don't start the truck with the same key fob that you locked it with. So basically, if I lock it with my key fob and then someone else unlocks it with a different device, it will not allow the gas pedal to work until you put my custom pin in on the dashboard. Now, if you lock and unlock with the same key fob every day, all day, it's like the device isn't even there. It will just unlock and everything will be good to go. So that's one thing, but there's a bunch of different items out there that you can possibly use if you want to try to protect your truck. But my biggest point here is, after the 3 years of owning the truck, you should have something, some sort of protection for theft, because this is a highly sought after vehicle for thieves. Another item I would recommend pretty much right off the bat is that solar performance throttle controller like we talked about earlier. It actually has a security feature on it that also disables the gas pedal, so making it a little bit redundant here, but also improves drivability because, like I said, you can customize that throttle sensitivity outside of being boxed into just the options from Mopar on the screen alone. I wanted the sport throttle sensitivity without the sport transmission RPM hanging problem, so I was able to customize it in a way that I have sport pretty much everywhere else, but the throttle was still on street, making it kind of dead feeling, but I was able to fix that with the solar performance throttle controller. So if you do go to get one of those, you can actually use my code HPO5 and it will save you 5% on it as well. Might as well grab one and see if you like it. Worst case scenario, they have a no questions asked 30-day return policy. Again, on the discussion of paint protection film, I also have this truck ceramic coated. That's another thing that makes it a lot easier to maintain. If you were doing off-roading, it would be a lot easier to wipe the mud off, things like that. The ceramic coatings obviously make the truck look really good, but also make it easier to maintain as far as keeping it clean from bird droppings, bug guts, off-road mud, whatever it might be. For those of you who don't know, the truck is always in four-wheel drive mode. There is no way to set it to two-wheel drive mode, at least not from factory, there's not. So if you want a truck that is going to get you the best gas mileage and it's going to give you the most fun as far as like doing burnouts and stuff, this might not be for you. At the end of the day, with that taser device that I was telling you guys about earlier, you can actually set it up where it will disable the front two wheels, so you'll still have kind of a rear-wheel drive vehicle, but it's not something you want to do often because apparently there is some damage that could possibly happen from doing that. So I don't necessarily even recommend that. I just want to let you guys know it is always in four-wheel drive mode, whether it's wintertime, summertime, spring, it doesn't matter. It never shifts out of four-wheel drive. You can control how much the power is split between the four wheels based on what mode you're in. So I believe it's Baja actually has the least amount of power sent to the front wheels, but it's still, at the end of the day, always four-wheel drive. You can see behind me here I have my taillights tinted as well. That was something else that I got done whenever I had the truck PPF'd or covered with paint protection film. I personally like that just because it does black out the taillights. They're a little bit too bright red for me from factory, but just something to keep in mind. There are a couple aftermarket taillights out there that you might want to check into as well. I also have an AWE exhaust on this truck, which you heard there in the beginning, and it is really good sounding. I think it improves on the stock tone. It also gives it a nicer setup. Fully stainless exhaust from the cat's back, drops a little bit of weight, gives you a little bit of power. The tips look a little bit nicer, and it cleans up the tone a little bit. So in my opinion, one of the best exhausts you can get for the TRX. The wheels and tires on the truck, I swapped them out with a black diamond set of wheels and a Nitto Ridge Grappler 35-inch tall tire, but 13.5-inch wide. So it really has a beefy stance. And I'll link everything down below, guys, but if you're interested in the same kind of wheels that I have, you can actually save 10% on them by checking out that link down below if you want to grab them from Black Diamond. On top of that, I have the Retrax tonneau cover, which I actually really like. It's a lot more secure than a normal tonneau cover. You're not going to be able to cut through it or bash through it or anything like that. It's going to stay on the truck nicely, and I've had no problems with it in the 2 or 3 years that I've had that as well. I have a set of ditch lights from Last Fit that really look nice on the truck, really light up the road and the ditches pretty nicely. So if you're doing any off-roading, it's nice to have that extra light. I will be eventually getting some lights on the ram bar up at the top, but for now I haven't done anything with that yet, so stay tuned for that particular upgrade as well. Like I said, guys, in the 3 years that I've had the truck, I really enjoy the highway presence of it. You can easily take this on road trips. It's really soft, really comfortable, really capable. So if you were to take it on a road trip to Alaska or even the beach, it's going to do really well based on the fact that it is always an all-wheel drive. It is a softer, plush ride. It is a really nice, comfortable interior, and it has the modes for whatever you might get yourself into. There is a dedicated snow mode that's going to help you get out of sticky situations in the snow. There's the Baja mode that's going to help you get out of sticky situations on the beach or any kind of sand you're in. This thing really does it all. Another point to my 3 years of ownership here that I learned pretty early on is that the Hellcat engine that the truck uses is relatively known for oil blow-by because it is a forced induction engine. So one of the very first things I did, I think I had 2,000 miles on the engine before I bought an oil catch can from Mighty Mouse. Again, I'll link everything down below, but I did a video on the installation of the Mighty Mouse catch can, and it catches a pretty good bit of oil. So there is a lot of oil that would normally be blown back in through the intake and ultimately end up on the back of your valves that would crust up and eventually start robbing the engine of horsepower. This is something you should look into, whether it's Mighty Mouse or I think JLT makes one. A couple different companies have catch cans for the truck, and I would recommend them without a doubt. You're going to want to prolong the life of this engine. On that note, I also went with an aftermarket set of cold air intake filters. It does add some power, but the biggest reason I wanted to do it was because I wanted a little bit more of whine out of that supercharger. And with these aftermarket filters, it maintains the stock snorkel style air intake while also giving you a little bit more power and a little bit more noise from that supercharger. I went with the AFE system because it had the highest reviews. It looks the best under there in my opinion, and it still maintains that ability to see the T-Rex eating the Raptor under the hood, which is important, of course. One additional thing I did do that I never even filmed anything about or said anything about in any of my videos is I did paint the lower control arms in the front, because from the front of the truck everything's black, because I also swapped out the skid plate in the front bumper to black instead of a dark gray. And right underneath there, the control arms were just like a bright silver, and really very obvious to pretty much anybody, especially since this thing sits so high. If you're around a car that sits at normal car height, they're easily going to be able to see these silver lower control arms. So I painted them black with some high temperature caliper paint, and so far it's held up really well. I've had it done now for about a year, and it just looks a lot more fitting from the front. I also put a Last Fit bed liner in this truck. Even though I have the factory bed liner from Ram, I also put this bed liner in from Last Fit because it helps protect that bed liner. I know that sounds weird, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure everything holds up as long as possible. That's what the name of the game is for me, because like I said, I plan on keeping this truck for a very long time. And the bed liner was like $100 from Last Fit. And if you do decide to grab one of those, they fit really nicely, they look really good, and they're a lot grippier than the stock bed liner. So if you put something in there that you don't want to have slide around, this bed liner will actually hold it in place a lot better than the factory one does. I learned pretty early on with the truck that you pretty much need a tonneau cover, especially in the northern states, because during the winter time, the bed literally will fill up with snow. And of course, if it's a heavy snow, that just adds even more weight to the truck. So you want to have that bed tonneau cover for at least that purpose, if not to also store tools and stuff back there that you can lock, because the Retract's tonneau cover actually has a lock on it. You can kind of keep things more secure that way. But for me, it was mostly a way of keeping the snow and the rain out. And again, in the northern states, that is kind of an issue. If you're looking at the back side of the truck, you can see the TRX logo right here in a matte black vinyl. I actually chose to add these after I bought the truck, and I didn't get it with them on the truck because I knew I was going to put paint protection film on the truck. So putting the film on first and then the logos over top of the film is the way to do it if you want to maintain that matte black appearance. So this is just one of those things that I learned that I'm trying to share with you guys so you don't have to learn the hard way. If you want to PPF your truck, make sure you either don't get those options right off the bat, or if you do, just be aware you're going to have to peel them off and put them back on afterwards if you want them to remain matte black. You can leave them on underneath the PPF, but it will turn them from matte to gloss black. Just be aware of those things. As you can see here, I did go with the tow mirrors on my package as well because I do plan on towing my vehicles with this from time to time, and I would like to have as much visibility as possible. Definitely something to consider if you guys are doing something like I do with having cars or a camper or motorhome, anything that you need to possibly tow, it might be best to grab the tow mirrors. But guys, that is really going to do it. So that kind of serves as my 3-year review and kind of the things that I've learned in the 3 years that I've owned the truck. So hopefully this helped you. If it did, please smash the thumbs up button. Let me know that you like the content. We'll keep creating this kind of stuff for you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'm going to have tons of content like this coming you're not going to want to miss. And as always, guys, stay obsessed.